Hello everyone, back in the barn today. 4.3 is our last lesson in chapter 4. So last time we did 4.1 and 4.2 together, graphing our rational functions. So you got the asymptotes and all of those things that go along with it. And now we're going to look at some rational inequalities and their applications. And I don't know why it doesn't say it here, but we're also looking at rational equations. So let's solve a few rational equations. Ooh, not going to work. Hold on, let me dry off the board a little bit. So let's, or getting worse. Maybe we won't do this. Solve some equations first. And mainly we're solving equations because we're going to need them when we look at the application. So a couple word problems at the end of this one. So let me give you an example here. So first example we have looks like this. 3x minus 1 over x squared plus 1 equals 1. So this hopefully is not the first time you've seen this. These just might look a bit bigger and uglier than you saw in a previous algebra class. But basically the rule here for solving these guys is cross multiplication. Okay, so the best way to do this is to turn the other side, if it's not already a fraction, turn it into a fraction, and then we're going to multiply across like that, or diagonally. In this case, it's really nice because these guys are both 1, so we end up with 3x minus 1 equals x squared plus 1. So we have a quadratic, so we need to move things around to get it set equal to 0. Okay, so remember, solving a quadratic, that's the way you do it, set it equal to 0. I think I'm gonna move everything that way. So we're gonna end up with a positive x squared. This is gonna come over and be minus. This is gonna come over and be plus, and we'll have a 0 left on this side. So we can factor this side. X and a 1 and a 2. And in order to get that -3 in the middle, they both need to be negative. So that means x will equal 1, x will equal, oh sorry, not negative, positive 2. But there is one thing when it comes to solving equations. We must check our answers. And it's not that I don't think we did our work right. It's that, remember, we've got a denominator here, and it's possible that one of our answers, both of them, maybe neither of them, but they could make the denominator 0. So we need to check. We don't need to check the whole thing. We just need to check the denominator. And again, I don't know why the board is, it's early, so the board might just be wet just because we're outside. Denominator. So we're going to take our 1s, we're looking at this. So we're going to go 1 squared plus 1, that's good, that's 2. And we're going to go 2 squared plus 1, that's 5. So they both are not 0. So we've checked both of our answers and they're both good. They're good to go. Okay, so that one was kind of an easy one because of the 1 on the one side. So let me bump up the difficulty level here and make it a little bit uglier for us. Let me see what the book has first before I make one up. Okay. Let's see if the black pen will work over here. Right off the board, largely costly. Okay, so maybe an early morning lecture isn't the best deal. All right, here they give us 2x, it's not, plus 17 over x plus 1 equals x plus 5. And again, best thing to do is just turn this guy into a fraction so that you're always thinking that cross multiplication. So we're going to cross multiply. And this time we'll have 2x plus 17. But when we cross multiply here, we're gonna have to FOIL. So we're gonna have x squared, and then in the middle we'll have 6x, and then at the end we're gonna have 5. Now something we need to discuss, we're about halfway through the class, so it's time that we discuss this. When I say that we need to FOIL these two guys out, and then I don't write it out, I immediately go to the answer. Some of you guys might still be like, wait a minute, I need to take some time to multiply the two out. If that's the case and you can't do this relatively quick, maybe not quite as quick as me, but relatively quick, you need to step up your game. Because when we get to calculus, and as we get further through pre-calculus, anytime I see two binomials and I need you to FOIL them, I need it to go like that. I need you to be able to immediately go to this, okay? X squared, 1 plus 5 is 6x, 5 at the end. It's got to be quick. Otherwise, you're gonna fall behind as people are doing lectures in your calculus classes. So you wanna speed up that up there. Okay, so that out of the way. Again, we've got an x squared, so again, I'm gonna move everybody this way to get a 0 over here. So we'll have 0 equals x squared minus our 2x will leave us at 4x, and subtract 17 and we'll be at -12. And now factoring should go, maybe not quite as fast, but should go pretty fast as well, especially if that's just a 1 up there. So we need two numbers to multiply to be 12. It's either 3 and 4 or 2 and 6, but I need that 4. So it's 2 and 6. It needs to be positive, so it's plus, minus. Okay, it's got to go pretty fast so that you don't start falling behind, okay? All right, so that means here x equals 2, and here x equals -6. Okay. But we have to check again, and we're not checking that guy because he doesn't really matter, but right there, the number that wouldn't work would be x can't equal -1, right? Well, our two guys are good, so we checked our answer and we're good to go. Okay, so solving equations, first thing, and we'll get into that when we do the applications in a little bit, but let's look at the inequalities. And honestly, most of the time, these inequalities are almost easier than the solving. Okay, the inequalities might have that kind of negative feeling for you, but in this case, they're really not that bad. Now let me dry it off, all the wetness off. I guess that should make sense, being it's called a dry erase marker. It needs to be dry. So when we're looking at inequalities, if we remember when we did quadratic inequalities maybe like a week ago, we used a sign chart. Same situation here. So we're going to use a sign chart again. Okay. And basically we're going to set it up, we're going to make little factors, and then we're going to go plus, minus, that kind of thing. So let's jump right into it, and I'm not going to go the super easiest. I'm just going to, get you right into it. Well, this is not nice at all, but we can do it. So 3x squared minus 5x minus 2 all over x squared minus 9 is less than 0. So make sure there is a 0 on this side. That is important. And before we go to the sign chart, what we have to do is get it in its factored form. So 0 and then factor. 0 first though, 0 first, factor. I don't like factoring these, but we can do it. So one of them's gonna have to have a 3x and the other one an x. Okay, now we need a -2 at the end. So if I go 2 and 1, one of them has to be positive and one of them negative. But I don't see how that's gonna give me the 5 I need in the middle. So what if we go the other way? 1 and 2, and we make that negative so that that's 6, negative 6 plus 1. Okay, now the bottom one I do like. Okay, x minus 3, x plus 3, less than 0. Okay, so we've got 4 factors that we're going to need to put on our sign chart. So let's make a nice big sign chart here. Get rid of this guy. Oh great, now we're not even erasing. I don't know if you can hear it in the background. You probably can't yet. It's probably still a little too quiet. But if you hear some groaning, that's not me. There's a 200-pound tortoise. He's still asleep in his corner, but he's waking up. And as he wakes up, he groans and groans. And if he comes out, I'll show him to you. But we'll see. We'll see. All right. Apparently that's as good as I'm going to get. All right, so sign chart. Not cool, man. See how the purple pen works. Maybe the purple pen. Nope, not gonna work. You guys are probably already done with your sign chart, and I still can't even draw mine on the board. We're getting worse. Oh yeah, it's sopping wet. Okay, so for future, we will not do early morning lectures in the barn. Not working. Okay, so if you remember before, we need to have hash marks to put on our sign chart. And those come from our different factors here. So if this was equal to 0, we want all the places where it would equal 0. And we call those our critical values. So this one would equal 0 at negative 1/3. This one is 2, this one is positive 3, and this one is negative 3. So those are the numbers that are going to go on our graph. And remember, they need to come in order, not in that order, in numerical order. So negative 3 is here. And then negative 1/3, and it doesn't need to be to scale or anything, just get them in order. 2, and 3. And now we're going to go through and we're going to check each factor. And remember, all we're interested in is whether it's positive or negative. So if you put in a number in this zone, like negative 4, let's say, that's going to make negative 12 plus 1. That's still going to be negative, isn't it? Now, can we agree that negative 1 is in here? So if we put negative 1 in there, we get negative 3 plus 1, still negative. 0 is in here. If we plug 0 in there, we're going to be positive. And then here's the little hint. Once it turns positive, it's not going to go back. So this is going to be positive, and this is going to be positive. And notice where it went from negative to positive is actually where it would have equaled 0. So that's a hint as well. So when we do this next one, x minus 2, again, take like negative 4, and it's going to give you negative 6, so that's negative. Negative 1, it's going to stay negative. 0, it stays negative. But once it hits 2, what happens when we put in like 2.5? All of a sudden we're positive. Positive. Okie dokie, what if we do x minus 3? Starts negative, right? And then it's going to stay negative, stay negative, stay negative until it hits its 3, and then it turns positive. Okay, so you can get kind of even, little shortcuts here just by knowing what's going on. So this one, put in negative 4, we're negative, but then we immediately hit the value that would make it equal to 0. So then we go positive, positive, positive. Now, we are looking for where the whole thing is negative, right? Okay. So this one, 4 positive or 4 negatives make a positive, don't they? But this one, 3 negatives and a positive, this is going to be negative. That unfortunately is positive. This one with 1 negative will be negative and positive. So we're really interested in this zone and this zone. So we just need to write our answer in our interval notation. Dry it off again. So are we using the endpoints? And we're not because of just the less than sign. So we're going to go -3 to -1/3 with parentheses, union, and then we're going to go 2 to 3 with parentheses. And there's our answer. Now, because of the board, that actually took a lot longer than it needed to, okay? So that, yeah, it's kind of a pain in the butt. So you guys probably finished that and like waiting. But hopefully, oh my Lord, this is gonna be a pain in the ass. Okay, let's do one more and then I'm done with the board for a while, okay? We'll come back and do applications in a little bit when I feel like I can work with this. Oh yeah, no big pain in the butt. Okay, so it looks like the blue is our go-to for the moment. Okay, well, while we're waiting for that to soak, let's just start the problem over here. All right, what do we got? How about this one? No, not that one. Let's go with this one. Oops, I forgot. We're going with the blue pen. X squared plus 5x plus 6 over x minus 1 is greater than or equal to 0. So some there'll be more factoring, some there'll be less factoring. Okay, so this time we got the greater than or equal to part, so we're going to have to remember that. And we're going to factor first. Now luckily the bottom on this one doesn't need factoring, just the top. So we've got if we had a 6 and a 1, that's going to put us at 7. So it's actually going to be the 2 and the 3, and plus and plus. Okay, so be careful with that one with the 6 and 1 and 5 there in the middle. Oh look, I can put the whole thing all on one side of the board. Okay, so we need our little x's. So that guy would be -2. This guy would be -3, and this guy is going to be +1. So order again, so -3, -2, +1. Dash, 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 dash. Okay. So let's take that first one. Now, the hope is we kind of remember how this starts. So in this first region, you put in -4, we're definitely negative. But are we going to stay negative? And we are, until we hit the -2. Be a little too wet down here again. Once we hit the -2, we're going to become positive. And then we're going to stay positive. -2. Okay, when we put the x plus 3 here, we're going to start negative, put in -4. But there's our -3, so we're going to turn positive, positive, positive. And then finally the x minus 1 is going to start negative, and it's going to stay negative all the way to here, and then we're going to get a positive. Okay, so this time we need where it's positive. So not this. This one will work for us, and this one will work for us. And this time, do we want the endpoints? So yes, we want the endpoints, but we actually don't want all of them. We want that one and that one, because those are going to make it equal to 0. But tell me about 1. Where did 1 come from? This is the denominator. So even though we want it equal to 0, do we want the denominator equal to 0? We don't, do we? So we don't want this one. We want those 2 because they're from the top, that's okay, but we don't want the one from the denominator. So our first interval is going to be, oops, it's not going to have a parenthesis though, it's going to have a bracket, right? Bracket, -3 to -2. Union, not using the 1, so we're going to hit it with a parenthesis, and we're going to go 1, and even though like I made a circle around this, it's going on and on and on, so that's going to take us to infinity. Okie dokie. So in this little lecture, it's probably 20 minutes now, we've got the equations and the inequalities, and like I said, I'm going to take a break for a while until the board actually heats up a little bit, and then I'll come back and do a couple word problems for you. Sound good? See you next time.